people have suffered at the hands of Saudi Arabia and its allies, with the military and diplomatic backing of the US government. Not only has Yemen endured the crimes of an illegal war, but it is purposefully and maliciously starved by Saudi Arabia, who has spent years blocking food and basic necessities from reaching the people of Yemen. The severity of this humanitarian crisis cannot be overstated, with more than 400 children under 5 are facing death by starvation this year alone. It is enraging, though not shocking, that President Biden is continuing the US legacy as the main enabler of Saudi Arabia's crimes, ensuring their impunity in their barbaric onslaught. But the people of Yemen are strong and they are resilient. After 6 years of unimaginable misery, the Saudi coalition is still incapable of breaking Yemen's spirit, and Yemen still resists. It is with limitless pride and joy that we uplift the heroic efforts of the Yemen Liberation Movement. The YLM is a grassroots, volunteer-led organization working to mobilize communities for an end to the Yemen war and bring liberation and sovereignty to all of Yemen. Over the past 2 weeks, the YLM has brought the fight against US criminal acquiescence to Washington, D.C. itself. And since March 29th, members of the YLM have been on a hunger strike with but a single demand: the end of all US support to Saudi blockade. Iman and Mona Saleh have now entered their 13th day of hunger strike and have shown unwavering determination to continue their struggle until the Biden administration meets their demands. In just 2 weeks, they and the other hunger strikers have brought national awareness and attention to the plight of Yemenis, and have also been featured in mainstream media outlets and have met with members of Congress. There are ways you can support and uplift the YLM campaign. You can follow the YLM on social media, donate, and also sign the petition. All links will be posted in the chat. They're also asking for art donations. And so they will be welcoming donation from artists, and the art can be in any medium as it relates to Yemen, to Iman and her hunger strike, or just generally with solidarity and joint struggle. The art will be posted on the YLM's Instagram, and the artwork will be auctioned. Today, as we uplift a Palestinian martyr and literary giant, Ghassan Kanafani, we reflect on the wisdom of his words that we carry the responsibility to birth a different reality. Ghassan lived and organized in a time where the Palestinian national movement, the Black Power movement, and Native liberation movements, in conjunction with other third world liberation struggles, were all working together to achieve this vision. This is the importance of cultural production, the telling of stories, the portrayal of times we are living in, to deliver the messages that will empower us to resist oppression, to live courageously, and to write our own futures.
Thanks, Lina. My name is Ilyas. I'm going to be one of your co-hosts today. The Ghassan Kanafani Resistance Arts Scholarship is a grassroots initiative that was launched almost 6 years ago with a threefold vision. The scholarship aims to financially support the academic endeavors of Palestinian youth, to uphold the legacy of Ghassan Kanafani by providing those in diaspora space to explore their identities as Palestinians, separated from their ancestral homelands, and as well as to uplift the stories of a new generation, 73 years post-Nakba, and to be a living part of the Palestinian collective memory of past, present, and future. Ghassan Kanafani is a Palestinian novelist and iconic national hero. He was born in Akka and was exiled at the age of 10. He channeled his experiences through the literary arts, both as a teacher, helping youth contextualize their situation as Palestinian refugees, and in his own writings, telling the story of Palestine and Palestinians, creating a human connection to our experiences of struggle, exile, love, and loss. Despite his passing decades ago, his writing is still very relevant to our current political landscape. He was one of the spearheads behind the shift towards revolutionary Palestinian struggle, and his work coined the term resistance literature. He captured the popular imagination, not just of Palestinians and Arabs, but of the world. a feat that would lead to his untimely death. The Israeli government felt so threatened by the power of his word that they assassinated him and his niece Lamis on July 8, 1972, in his home of exile in Beirut, Lebanon. He was only 34 years old. His memory and the legacy of his writings, however, live on in the hearts and minds of many around the world. We hope that the Ghassan Kanafani Resistance Arts Scholarship will honor Kanafani's legacy by continuing to speak freely and truthfully about our history, our present, and our future struggle.
The anthology we are celebrating tonight as we begin our call for submissions for the next cycle is titled Letters to Mustafa, taken from Ghassan Kanafani's story, Letter from Gaza, written to a friend identified only as Mustafa, whom the narrator had originally agreed to follow out to California for vocational purposes. Yet the letter, which contains many smaller narratives of resistance and resilience on the part of the people of Gaza, eventually culminates in a refusal to follow Mustafa and instead urges him to return to his people for, quote, "We are all waiting for you." By Letters to Mustafa, we are hoping to capture another, lesser explored aspect of resistance, which is the component of self-sacrifice in service of the collective. What does it mean to put the struggle before one's own personal gain? And how can we identify and celebrate these smaller, perhaps quieter, but by no means less significant instances of resistance and refusal? In what ways do we all as Palestinians committed to the liberation struggle write our own letters to Mustafa every day through our various refusals of convention and expectation? We'd like to acknowledge all those that contributed to the 5th annual anthology. Our cover artist, Malak Matar, our judging panel comprised of Suja Sawafta, Majd Kayad, Lina Abu Jarade, Channi, and Naila Matuk, the entire GK committee, and most importantly, all of the anthology contributors who shared their story with us.
The land I'm tuning in from today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. This territory is also subject to the Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. I want to also recognize the ongoing colonial violence that Indigenous communities around so-called Canada and so-called US are facing. As we listen to these artists, each of them a member of diaspora deeply impacted by occupation and colonization of Palestinian lands, let us be mindful of where we stand and also take this time to renew our commitments to not just acknowledging these lands, but also tangibly fighting for the marginalized peoples who inhabit them. I'm going to drop some links in the chat of how we could stand in solidarity with the Indigenous peoples of this land.
All right, perfect. We have a really exciting lineup for y'all today. So we'll get started with our first performer, Mariam Abdullah Masoud. Mariam Masoud is a Palestinian writer from the village of Al-Mughayyar residing in Chicago. Mariam has recently completed her master's in English, specializing in themes of displacement and the human condition in an ever-globalizing and neo-colonial world. As a Palestinian raised in the States and who also lived in Palestine for 8 years, much of her writing focuses on how the Palestinian narrative and struggle are mapped in this global order and predominantly Western discourse. Her ultimate goal is to reclaim our own narratives from the Orientalist discourses produced by the West by writing stories that showcase genuine and raw Palestinian voices. Please help us welcome Mariam.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. I am tuning in from my village of Al-Mughayyar in Ramallah, Palestine. And I guess I'll finish this. I'll read my story first, and if there's any time left, I'll give some little pointers about, what my research interests are and what drives my writing. Okay. Intellectual self-description. Right now, a young Black woman named Lori is speaking. She reads us her intellectual self-description, our first writing assignment for the Masters in English introductory course. I sit 7 seats down from Lori, and between us are 7 white faces. To the other side of me are 9 more white faces. I try so hard to pay attention to Lori because maybe she too has been counting like me. But my nerves get the best of me. I start to regret what I wrote, wondering if I can make up an entirely new answer to the writing prompt, one that won't be so damning in this blinding classroom. I'm in hell. There's just a lot less red than I imagined. Why am I here? Damn it, why am I here? Khali Karim could probably answer this question easily. Why are you crying, ya Habla? My uncle asks incredulously. You're going to America, not Nar Jahannam. I would love to be in your position right now. Of course he would. He is 32 and unmarried because he's hell-bent on marrying a woman with an American citizenship. The American dream is so enticing. Leaving behind everything would be no sacrifice to him. Wallah, it's not for her papers, he would explain pointlessly. I just don't like the girls here. They're too superficial. Liar, I wish I could say out loud. As if the girls here don't raise generations of revolutionaries and rebels. As if the girls here don't battle internalized misogyny, Western standards of being a woman, the soldier's hungry gaze for the desert savage, and his bloodlust for the terrorist hiding knives in purses or under abayas. As if he wasn't a backstabber. He gladly rubs the eraser's end of history's pencil onto his name. He holds the backspace down. He is no longer Karim Abdul Rahman. He is Carl. He forgets to call his parents back home. When someone gets married, he apologizes for not being there. He watches from the flat screen in his suburban home when Gaza is bombed. He misses every Friday prayer at the mosque because he is working. He names his daughter Safat, but calls her Sophie. She doesn't meet her grandparents back home until she is 15. He ships her off for the summer and stays behind. He has to work. His parents grow old, their praises and pride for him always present, and so is their disappointment. He left us. I can't make him understand this bleak future. When I have witnessed my father live before he finally shipped us back to Palestine. After all, I'm just a niece. What the hell do I know? Because I'm going to miss you all, I tell him. Because who will make Sidi and Siti late night snacks and sleep in the empty bedrooms haunted with memories of their kids that now have their own families? Who will take off Sidi's socks when he comes back from the village square? Who will feed the stray cats outside? Who will help Mama with the dishes? Who will comfort her baby sister when she is too scared to go to the wedding she has been excited to attend because there are soldiers in the village? Who will tell her that they won't hurt her even though she vividly remembers when they threw a tear gas canister in her classroom window just last month? I don't tell him all this because he is a traitor, or at least he will be. But what does that make me? I left them all for a master's degree in English. I left them for rhetorical and theoretical discussions that lead nowhere, for essays that do nothing, for peers that make me nervous, for assignments that make me censor my words as I wait for my turn to speak. Liar, I hear my uncle's voice telling me. I stand before my classmates and read from my paper. I can't describe myself without first being abundantly clear that I hate it here. I hate it because it taught me to love it. That love was blind. I wore American flag neck scarves as a hijab. I hosted Thanksgiving dinners. I cried during White House Down when Channing Tatum set the White House on fire. When I moved back to Palestine at 17, that love was still there, still blind. I entered my village on a high horse, careful not to let my expensive name brand shoes touch the unpaved dirt and goat feces covered ground. I hated everyone in the village who welcomed me with their kind, warm assalamu alaikums. I hated them because they were not like me. They did not know and agree with all the things that I knew. I hated them because they did not speak English and because they wanted me to speak only Arabic. I hated them because I was so sure at the time that I was better than them. I was, of course, from the home of the free and land of the brave. How could I not be better? A ghost took off my blindfold. Saji Darwish, a Birzeit University student, murdered outside his home as he fed his family's goats. 5 years later, and I am so full of love, it overwhelms me. I love my family, my village, my cousin who swears I fell for him first, and I did. He builds our future home with his own 2 hands, and I plant almond trees in our garden. I come from there, and I remember how she saved me from here. She taught me resistance and revolution. She taught me that anger and love are not mutually exclusive. I am angry because I love her, because here is erasing her, because I am here and remember who I was, and now I hate me too. I read it all word for word except the last line, and I hate you too. She taught me to resist, but she also taught me to survive. After class, I sent my uncle a message on WhatsApp. If you move to America, will you come back for my wedding? Of course. How is school? Alhamdulillah. How are Siti and Sidi? Alhamdulillah. Each Alhamdulillah is a reassurance. I just wish we weren't liars. Thank you. I don't know how much, if I have any time left, if I took up all the 15 minutes, but so let me know how I am on time.
Are we good for another performance, or are we good on time?
Okay, thank you everyone for the very kind comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam, for sharing such a personal yet very powerful piece that I'm sure many folks in the audience can resonate to. And I think this is really what it means to be Palestinian and producing art forms that are sometimes so individual in our experiences, but still I feel like collectively a lot of us can relate to a lot of the themes in that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, next we have Hala Ayyad. Hala Ayyad is a Canadian Palestinian singer who's based in Toronto. She has always had a profound appreciation for all kinds of Arabic music and believes that music is truly the best form of expression, no matter the dialect or genre. She discovered her talent for singing at a late age and overcame her stage fright by joining a choir first, and she then went on to become a soloist at Arabesque. Welcome, Hala.
Thank you, guys. My name is Hala Ayyad. I'm tuning in from Toronto. I'm originally from Palestine, to be specific from Abu Dis, if some of you are familiar with the area. That's bordering Jerusalem, about 5 kilometers away. Today I'll be sharing 2 pieces with you. 2 of them, they're not my own pieces, of course. It's just music that I am really, really influenced by and I love personally. I love to sing about anything that makes me nostalgic, and both of these pieces make me really, really nostalgic, you know, and make me miss home a lot. So I'll start with Talat al-Barude. This one is a really, really sad one. It's basically, it's written by folk. Nobody really knows who wrote it, but essentially it speaks about, you know, a mom or even a lover that had her, you know, her partner's rifle back without him after he has gone to war. So this can be, you know, after the Ottoman rule. It can even apply to today's situation with the conflict ongoing back home. So I hope you enjoy it. مع السلامة وين رايح مع السلامة يا مسك فايح مع السلامة وين بدك لقعد على دربك وردك طلع طلت البارود والسبع ما طل، يا بوز البارود من دمه مبتل. طلت البارود والسبع ما جاش، يا بوز البارود من دمه مرتاش. حمرا يا أصيلي وين رحتي في باب السرايا بعلمي تركتي. حمرا يا أصيلي وين رحتي في باب السرايا بعلمي تركتي. طلعت البارود والسبع ما طل، يا بوز البارود من دمه مبتل. ما بيني وبينك سلسلة وادي، وين رحت غادي يا عز أحبابي. ما بيني وبينك سلسلة وادي، وين رحت غادي يا عز أحبابي. مع السلامة وين رايح، مع السلامة يا مسك فايح. مع السلامة وين بدك لقعد على دربك وردك. The second piece, thank you guys. The second piece, I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with. It's called Yumma Mwel al-Hawa. It's sung in a lot of countries. It's not just native to Palestine, but we have our own version of it, and it's personally my favorite, of course. So I'll start. Yumma Mwel al-Hawa, يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النادي فيا. يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النادي فيا. ومشيت تحت الشتاء والشتاء رواني، والصيف لما أتى لوى من نيراني. بيضل عمري فدا ندر للحرية. يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر على حكم النادي فيا. يا ليل صح الندى يشهد على جراحي، وانسى جيش العدا من كل النواحي. والليل شاف الردى عم يتعلم بيا. يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النادي فيا. بارودي على الجبل أعلى من العالي، مفتاح درب الأمل والأمل برجالي. يا شعبي يا بطل بفديك بعيني. يما مويل الهوى يما مويلية ضرب الخناجر ولا حكم النار اللي فيا. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Hala. That was really beautiful. I wish we could hear it live, you know, and not through Zoom. But I'm so happy that, you know, you were here today and able to share that with us. Okay, so next, I have the pleasure of introducing Maysam. Maysam Ghani is a Muslim spoken word poet with Palestinian and Syrian roots, dwelling on the unceded lands of Turtle Island. She graduated with a degree in global development studies and is in her Bachelor of Education year with specializations in First Nations, Métis, and Inuit studies at and history at Queen's University. Maysam is dedicated to anti-colonial social justice movements and often explores these politics in her writing. She writes poetry that explores questions of home, faith, displacement, and healing through her familial and ancestral connections. Maysam, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ilyas. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm so honored to have been asked to read some poetry. Today, I'm going to be reading 3 pieces, 2 of which have been published in this year's anthology, and then one of which is a bit more of a recent piece that I have written. So I'll just jump into them. This first piece is in the anthology. It's called Teta Loves Pomegranates, and it comes in 2 parts. So I will flow between the 2. Teta cutting open pomegranates. Summer days in childhood, hands brittle yet carrying oceans in each pomegranate seed. Something lost, odes to home, hymns to what could have been citrus groves, but now she's aged Palestine on her back, Lebanon under her feet, and Allah on her forehead. At age 8, 1948, she knew exile. She knew travel across lines forcibly cut into dirt. She knew tent house ripped from home, gun wounds and shrapnel, loss of young ones too young to be named. She knew running. She knew 8 children, carrying them for decades, struggling to uphold something that seemed so forgotten. She remembered prayer, faith, and its inextricable connection to place. La ilaha illallah, habibti, remember to eat. Are you fasting? Alhamdulillah, mashallah alayki, habibti, remember to pray. Remember your roots. Recite al-Fatiha and you will heal. Remember your father. He loves you. I swear everything he tries to do is for you, habibti, remember. Remember people in the good and that Allah is always with you. Pomegranate seeds popping in my mouth, Baba silent, news blaring, cars rushing, Teta praying. Habibti, I am so proud of you. You share the stories of our people. When I am too far from home, I remember Teta. And when I cannot find my prayers, I remember somebody is praying for me. Teta would always whip up manaish, zatar, khubz, olive oil, an ancient mixture. My brothers and I, we laugh now, but she never wanted us to go hungry. I wonder if it's because she knew the pain of a true hunger. She longed for the fruits of a land pulled from beneath her feet and away from her eyes, to send one young son across the sea to feel the strain of a better life, to take the shrapnel from his feet and allow him to walk a path of safety for family. I wonder if it's because she yearns for something that she'll never forget. Zaatar Menaish by Mama's loving hands, or the way it made her late husband smile on early mornings with a plate of cucumber, olives, tomatoes, and onions, and always a cup of chai. I wonder if it's because we're older now. We move in a language foreign, our tongues whip, but they are not of the honey she knows, and yet we still watch the news of a familiar life we've never lived. Beside her, we never forget those left in bleeding lands, lands far gone from the life she remembers. Thank you. So that's Teta Loves Pomegranates. The second piece is called Bed Frames. So I'll just jump into it. Home is where Mama meets me. In her childhood, she was not taught of careful caresses. She sits gently on the side of my bed, singing sacred hymns of past lives, soft symphonies that swore to protect us. Home is where his warmth waves goodbye for gambling secrets, waves uncertainty into my skin, with no one to witness how my body holds me in a one-bedroom complex, how I glimpse at his complexion as I pass by the mirrors. Home is where distant memories resurface. Land is a mix of blood and soil, a paradox of life. In the camps, they scatter the dust of our dying children by their bedside table. Home harvests, hugs, holds me, haunts Mama, haunts me, haunts sleep. Home hopes it doesn't have to hear me whisper my mistakes into pillowcases. Home is meant to be where I see my brothers carry themselves high. Ya Allah, help them get out of bed. Home is where I struggle silently, where I struggle to wear my share of the weight. Home is where I nestle into the space between the wall and my bed frame, where only Allah can see me. Ask Allah when the day comes that she can no longer hum those sacred symphonies. Is this where I must lay to rest? Thank you. So that's the second piece. And this last piece is also in this year's anthology. And it's called Rebel. It's written from the perspective of a child in Palestine. And so I will jump into it. I am the rebel. I am not a pawn in your game of empire. I am only the broken shackles of my people in Gaza. I am the rubble. I am not the caricature that moves on your diamond screens. I am only the home that you do not see as a home unless you are the one living in it. I am the rubble. I am only screaming at the top of my lungs, wide-eyed, sun-kissed hair, red-spotted shirt dotted with tears clutching desperately onto loose sheets of paper. I am the rebel. I am only imprisoned, fighting for the words of my people. I am only the curves of my Arabi that I was never taught, the nectar that pours from Teta's mouth onto paper. I am only her words that live for centuries in those old storybooks that you won't even let me hold. I am only the ashes of my home, the dust of my dreams. I am only the destruction you have carved into my mother's spine. It engulfs her and she feeds me. Your rage is mechanical. It turns the gears of your bulldozer. I am only the rubble that the cameras never get close enough to touch. I have stories imprinted on my skin. No matter how much I try to take the ink off my body and write it onto paper, you tell me I am not worthy, I am not human, I am terrorist, I write hate, I write evil, you are evil, I am a child, I wish you saw me as I am, a child waiting for this world to hear my breath. I sigh from inside the rubble and say, I am the rebel. My books are an army, and I will carve myself onto the countertops in Teta's kitchen. I will etch my skin with tally marks of the days you left us caged. I will look up and say, Ya Allah, I am here, and they won't write my story, keep me alive. I know that our stories will rebuild these creations. And I know that my ashes will scatter the world. Thank you so much. That's it for my 15 minutes. Thank you so much for having me, the GK committee at with the PYM. I will pass it off to the MCs.
Thanks so much, Maysam. I admire your poetry so much, and I'm happy to hear it every time. Every time that I hear it, I'm so happy. Thank you for sharing with us. So the Palestinian Youth Movement provides unique scholarship for Palestinian youth residing in so-called United States and Canada. It is the first of its kind in North America, providing Palestinian youth a platform and encouragement to engage in reflecting on their collective narratives of Palestinians in exile. The Ghassan Kanafani Arts Scholarship aims to continue the legacy of literature and creative expression that has been inherent to the Palestinian experience. The project aims to support our youth in educational and academic pursuits while identifying the deep linkages between public, private, social, and political life for our community. The Ghassan Kanafani Resistance Arts Scholarship rewards youth for their writing and creativity in open space to celebrate our Palestinian identity. So far, our grassroots efforts have modestly funded 15 prizes to young Palestinian students and have published and showcased the work of over 80 youth over the course of 5 years. Through the judging process, hundreds of young Palestinians' work has been reviewed by arts and literature mentors like Steven Selaita, Leila Abdulrazak, Remy Kanazi, Philip Metris, Chani Desai, Naila Matuk, Majd Kayal, Suja Sawafta, Lina Abojarade, and Robin DJ Kelly. And rising activist scholars like Omar Zaza and Dina Omar. Every year, we give the first place winner an opportunity to sit on the judging panel of the following year. That allows them to learn from other scholars and become mentors for others in their generation.
Perfect. Thank you, Ilyas. Before I go into this shameless sales pitch, I just want to say how humbling it is to be surrounded with such genuine and warm talent, and being a part of the GK committee and just witnessing these forms of expression is just reinforces how important it is to provide a space for Palestinian youth and creatives to share their artwork. So I just want to thank everyone here today. So we as the Ghassan Kanafani Scholarship Committee want the scholarship to live beyond the print anthology. And so we believe creating these unique spaces to engage each other and to uplift Palestinian narratives and cultural production, which is so integral to keeping our struggle alive. The scholarship costs between $3,000 to $4,000 to run, and with your support, we can continue to magnify this work and to sustain our impact. You can support the scholarship by donating and receiving a copy of our 5th edition of the anthology on our website. Somebody will send the links in the chat. And we have various bundles that include both print and PDF options. And so this is really important because all of the funds that you give to support the scholarship goes directly back into the scholarship pot and are obviously awarded to these young Palestinian creatives. And so with a donation of $10, you can receive a PDF of our 5th annual anthology, or you can donate $40 and receive a print anthology, a postcard, and a tote bag, which are all super amazing. And we also have an option of where you can just pay donate $25 and you'll be given a print copy of the anthology. Due to the presence of COVID, we haven't been able to hold our in-person events that we normally rely on to raise funds for the next year of scholarships. And so we know that not everyone can give. And so your presence here with us today means so much. But if you are able to support through an anthology donation, or you're able to sponsor our 2nd or 3rd place prizes at $500 or $250, please send your donation to this link that I will drop, and also send an email of intent to gkscholarship@gmail.com. All right, I'll pause here. Are we, Mariam, are you able to perform another piece?
Yes, so I'm just, I have one recent one and one older one, so just choose, or I'm not sure. Anyone?
You can go ahead with both. I feel like we're good on time.
Okay, I'll start with the most recent one, and maybe I can get some thoughts from you all. This is entitled Revolutionary Woman. They say never meet your heroes. I never thought it was something I had to worry about until now. You see, my hero shares my last name, my wide hips, my ambitions, my resentment of our family. When I first moved to Palestine, she was in her last year at Birzeit University. What I did not realize until very recently is that it was also her last year loving her parents unconditionally. She was promised to her cousin when she turned 15, and she agreed to the match on the condition that she could first finish her studies. What her parents did not take into account, however, was that in knowledge, there is no end in sight. She read socioeconomic and political theory, novels in both English and Arabic, newspapers, and comments from her professors that praise her mind and urge her to continue. And months later in June, when she was suspended between the relief and pride of achieving one degree and the restlessness and ambition of beginning the next, my aunt read the marriage contract the sheikh presented to her and signed her name. I watched from the top of the staircase as she stood in her black abaya and scarf that were haphazardly thrown on, because just minutes before the sheikh arrived, she was curled up in her bed crying, and the woman in the family cried with her. She stood barefoot while he asked her if anyone was forcing her to this marriage. My uncle, who flew in from the States to fulfill his father's wishes for his daughter, stood close behind her, his wide frame casting a threatening image and his likeness reflecting from the contract. Say no, it said, and so she did. I slept next to her every night and held her hand while she cried herself to sleep. I brought her food to the bedroom she refused to leave. And when she refused to eat, my grandma took my place and wrapped her large arms around her daughter and sobbed. Why are you doing this to me, Yamma? Please eat, please, for me. You did this to me, she would cry back. You sold me. What was I supposed to do? It would have killed your dad. Do you want to kill him? Yes, she would say without a moment's hesitation. I stood awkwardly near my grandmother, trying to decide if I should hug my aunt from the other side or hug my grandmother. I became regretfully aware of how this moment resembled an award-winning movie scene. The strong female lead's breakdown, her mother's heartbreak, and the supporting actress, me, standing awkwardly. So I patted my grandmother's arm and waited until their whimpers turned to sleeping breaths. It was a right move, I think. The scene ended nicely. A month passed this way, and she lost a considerable amount of weight. The skin on her face sagged, stuck to bone and muscle devoid of flesh. Her eyes grew big, while the space beneath them darkened and hollowed. She resembled a Tim Burton character. I didn't think it was that type of movie. She started threatening suicide. We didn't doubt it because we knew she already took pills for a condition I won't disclose. Just know she had an abundance of pills if she ever decided to swallow them all at once. During an especially bad fight with her parents, she locked herself in her room as she kept crying out that she wanted to die. She wouldn't open the door, and my grandmother called my father. "Come quick, before she does something to herself," she yelled. It was the first time my father involved himself in the matter. He thought staying out of it made him the good guy. I didn't know the difference anymore. When he finally broke the door in, she had chopped off a handful of her long, beautiful brown hair. She held her brown locks in one hand and the scissors in another when my father slapped her. I was still in school when it happened, so I heard the story from my grandmother, who, let's be honest, also paints her scenes with a filmmaker's flair. Did my aunt truly lose her mind? Did she try to stab herself with the scissors? Did she spit in my father's face? I don't know. I learned not to trust the screenplay anymore. Because it's been 8 years since the mornings we spent feigning sleep under the covers as my uncle banged on the door, demanding her surrender. She divorced her fiancé, received her master's, then PhD, became a writer, professor, and political activist. I am proud and honored to know her, to be the person she believes can follow in her footsteps. But her footsteps are cemented over the hearts of the parents whom she has abandoned. I don't want to follow them. She calls us revolutionary women. We seek independence, individual freedom, a disruption of traditions that have subjugated us. She leaves Palestine and her vulnerable, aging parents for America. She listens to her father's pleas for her to return, and her mother's forced indifference as she tells her daughter, "I'm fine." She is lying. She subordinates where she come from to where she went. She chooses American individualism over familial duty. She achieves success on the condition that she becomes less Arab, less Muslim, less daughter of so-and-so, more doctor. I heard there is someone who wants to ask for your hand, I tell her one day. Hell no, she says in disgust. It's a scam. How so? Because he is a high school dropout who does nothing in life but sells crap in a store in Ramallah. He has no ambitions, no accomplishments, she yelled. Is this what revolutionary sounds like? If she disparages people like this man, who is the revolution for? We are revolutionaries, she tells me. I agree, but only to appease her. I do not have the energy to debate. For what am I to a doctor? Unaccomplished. Thank you. And I understand this piece might be kind of, I don't know, some people can argue against this, but in my opinion, what influenced or what inspired this piece was noticing that what we're trying to fight against, which is this American ideals and values, which are rooted in European, that enlightenment theory and values. Something that we're fighting against is also something that we are trying to adapt and assimilate to, which is wrong. So it's kind of, we're contradicting our fight in our struggle in that way. And so this is something I wanted to speak to. So thank you for listening again.
Awesome. Mariam, are you performing a second piece?
No, it depends on everyone and also the time we have left. So
okay.
Yeah, I'm good. It's up to you guys.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
No problem. Thank you.
I feel like it really spoke to the life of especially a Palestinian woman navigating cultural and societal expectations, both in Palestine, which means one thing, and then also navigating life in exile in the US. So thank you so much for sharing such a
no problem.
raw and personal account. So thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you. Thank you for having me.
perfect. It is with great pleasure to introduce our next performer, Dareen Tatour, who I admire deeply. And I remember reading her poem, My People Resist Them, for the first time. And it really speaks to the nature of Palestinian resistance and sumud. Dareen Tatour is a Palestinian poet, a photographer, and political activist from Rene, Palestine. In 2018, she was tried and convicted in a Zionist court for inciting violence following the publication of one of her poems on social media. She was released in 2018 after serving a prison term. Since then, her case has drawn attention worldwide. The poet's case has become a controversial issue for free speech advocates and has drawn attention to the arrest of Palestinians in the occupied territories. Tatour is the recipient of the Oxfam Novid/PEN Award in 2019 for freedom of expression. A Hebrew online magazine, Mayan, awarded Tatour the 2016 prize for creativity and struggle, and she was also awarded the Danish Carl Scherenberg Prize for standing against injustice through her poetry in 2017. In 2020, she won the Freedom of Expression Award in Norway, Oslo. Running through all Tatour's work is a double narrative of oppression against the Palestinian people and also oppression of women under a patriarchal society. Since her release from prison, she was convicted on May 30th, 2018, and on July 31st, 2018, sentenced to 5 months imprisonment. She was released in September 2018. She has appeared at events around the world, including in Holland, Sweden, and Germany. She was a guest speaker at the CREA conference on violence against marginalized women. Quote, I, Dareen Tatour, a solo documentary work based on Tatour's experience, has been shown in various countries around the world. Welcome, Dareen. For folks tuning in, I think you can switch to the other language channel for a translation. It should be clarified in the chat. So if you need an Arabic translation, you will go to the Korean channel, and then this channel will be English.
شكرا طبعا لأسئلتي. قاوم يا شباب في قدسي ضممت جيراني وبثت همومي لله وحملت الروح على كفي من أجل فلسطين الوطن.
Can we pause? Sorry, Dareen.
بحل السن ما دام السم قد انتشر.
The mic, there's an issue with your mic. Laura, you could let her know. Okay. She will just leave the Zoom and come back on to hopefully fix the issue with the mic. Sorry about that, friends. That's always the issue with the Zoom and online events is unexpected logistical and technical issues. So bear with us until Dareen is back with us.
Lena, could you repeat what the interpretation system is? If folks want to hear English, are they staying on, do they go on the English channel or stay on this main channel?
I can clarify that for us. If you need to hear, if you would like to hear in English, please switch to the English channel. If you would like to listen in Arabic, please switch to the Korean channel. Arabic is Dareen's primary language, so if you would like to hear from her and hear that in Arabic, go ahead and switch to the Korean channel.
Now how the call of the voice is okay?
Yes. Thank you, Dareen. Go ahead.
قاومهم يا شعبي في قدسي في قدسي ضمدت جراحي وبثثت همومي لله، وحملت الروح على كفي من أجل فلسطين العربية. لن أرضى بالحل السلمي ما دام السم قد انتشر يقتل أزهارا من بلدي. لن أنزل أبدا رايات أنزلهم من وطني أدفعهم لزمان آتي. قاومهم يا شعبي، قاوم أطماع المستوطن، مزق دستورا من عار قد حمل الذل القهار، أوقفنا عن رد الحق. قاومهم يا شعبي، قاوم واتبع قافلة الشهداء. قتلوا الأطفال بلا ذنب وهدي قنصوها علنا، قتلوها في وضح نهار ومحمد قلعوا عينيه. طلبوه، رسموا الآلام في جسد، صبوا الأحقاد بعلي، اشتعلوا النيران، حرقوا أمالا في المهد. قاوم أخباث المستعرب، لا تصغي السمع لأذناب ربطونا بالوهم السلمي. لا ترهب ألسن مركافا، إن الحق بقلبك أقوى. ما دمت تقاوم في وطن عاش الغزوات وما كل. فعلي نادى من قبره، قاوم يا شعبي يا ثائر، واكتبني نثرا في الند. قد صرت الرد لأشلائي. قاوم يا شعبي، قاومهم. هذه هي القصيدة من الأدب المقاوم التي غيرت حياتي وقلبتها رأساً على عقب. كلما قرأتها أشعر بقوة غريبة، ربما لأنني تعذبت كثيراً بعد أن كتبتها. وهذا ما لم يتوقعه الاحتلال مني، حيث توقع أن أرمي هذه القصيدة وأخاف وأتوقف عن قراءتها وحتى عن الكتابة. لكن ما حصل هو العكس. أصبحت أكتب أكثر. من البديهي في الحياة أن الإنسان وخلقت فيه غريزة المقاومة، فهو يقاوم كل ما يعترض طريقه. وكذا هي اللغة، وكانت ولا تزال محوراً أساسياً وعنصراً هاماً للمواجهة والرفض لكل شيء يعترضه. لطالما استعمل الإنسان اللغة كعنصر هام ومؤثر من أجل الدفاع عن ذاته وقضاياه. ويعتبر الشعراء والكتاب أول وأهم من استعمال اللغة من أجل المقاومة، وخصوصاً في فلسطين، حيث يعتبر أدب المقاومة من أهم أنواع الأدب المنتشر فيها. فلسطين هي بلد أدب المقاومة بحكم وجود الاحتلال الدائم لها على مر العهود والسنوات. وقد أخرجت هذه البقعة من الأرض أشهر الكتاب العرب الذين كتبوا وأبدعوا في أدب المقاومة، أمثال إبراهيم طقان وشقيق قدوة وعبد الرحيم محمود الذي اشتهر بقصيدته الشهيد، والشاعر عبد الكريم الكرمي أبو سلمى صاحب القصيدة المشهورة لهب القصيد التي مطلعها: انشر على لهب القصيد شكوى العبيد إلى العبيد. والشاعر مطلق عبد الخالق والشاعر راشد حسين صاحب القصيدة الشهيرة الثوار ينشدون، والتي يقول فيها: سنفهم الصخرة إن لم يفهم البشر، إن الشعوب إذا هبت ستنتصر، مهما صنعتم من النيران نخمدها، ألم تروا أننا من لفحها سور، ولو قضيتم على الثوار كلهم تمرد الشيخ والعكاز والحجر. ومحمود الدسوقي ومحمود درويش ومعين بسيسو وغسان كنفاني وسميح القاسم وتوفيق زياد صاحب القصيدة الشهيرة أناديكم، والكثيرون غيرهم من الكتاب والشعراء الذين جاءوا بعدهم، حيث استمر أدب المقاومة حتى يومنا هذا، وإن خفت وتيرته نوعاً ما في هذه الفترة إلا أنها ما زالت حاضرة في كتب إبراهيم. إن أبرز كتاب أدب المقاومة هم من فلسطينيي 48 الذين يعيشون تحت الاحتلال، وبدأوا كتابة هذا النوع الأدبي بعد حرب 48. وفقا لما كتبه غسان كنفاني في دراسته عن الأدب المقاوم، وكان غسان كنفاني أول من استعمل مصطلح أدب المقاومة وأخرجه للنور عام 1966 من خلال كتابه الأدب الفلسطيني المقاوم تحت الاحتلال 1948 ل 1968. رغم أن أدب المقاومة كان حاضراً في فلسطين منذ ثورة البراق عام 1929 في أغاني وقصائد شاعر الثورة الشهيد نوح إبراهيم. اليوم مع وجود الاحتلال الصهيوني الإسرائيلي ومنذ عام 1948 تحارب سلطات الاحتلال الأدب المقاوم بكل الطرق المتاحة، بدءاً من مصادرة الأعمال الأدبية التي تقاوم الاحتلال وترفضه حتى اعتقال وسجن الكتاب والأدباء الشعراء واستشهاد بعضهم في المعارك. أنا لا أتحدث هنا من فراغ أو عبث. التاريخ يثبت أن الكاتب أو الشاعر الفلسطيني المقاوم عانى الأمرين في فلسطين على مدار سنوات الاحتلال والاستعمار، فمنهم من استشهد ومنهم من سجن، كما أنني شاهدة حية على مثل هذه الملاحقات السياسية ضد الشعر المقاوم الذي أكتبه والذي أعرض من خلاله جرائم الاحتلال ضد أبناء شعبي الفلسطيني. منذ صغري تأثرت بفدوى طوقان، وكانت هي أول من قرأت لها وتعمقت في شعرها، وبعدها بدأت أتفرغ لكل شعراء المقاومة، فشعرت أنني منتمية لهذا الشعر وهذا النوع الأدبي وبدأت الكتابة. كان هذا النوع الأدبي وما زال هو الذي أجد نفسي فيه، فحين أكتب الشعر المقاوم أبدي بكلمات مقاومتي لهذا الاحتلال، وأشعر أنني أخدم شعبي وأنقل كل تفاصيل حياتنا مع الاحتلال عبر الشعر للآخرين. أجد نفسي مع الشعر المقاوم وأحكي من خلاله عن كل مظاهر الاحتلال التي عشتها وما زلت أعيشها، أحداثاً رأيتها أمام عيني وما زلت أراها. بالطبع لم أكن أول الشعراء الذين تعرضوا للاعتقال والسجن في فلسطين بسبب كتابتهم الشعر المقاوم، حيث تعرض عدد لا بأس به من الشعراء قبلي للسجن والاعتقال والإقامة الجبرية، ولكنني كنت الشاعرة المرأة الأولى التي يزج بها في السجون بسبب كتابتها الأدب المقاوم ول3 سنوات. حيث برز الشعر النسائي المقاوم في فلسطين بأشعار فدوى طوقان ونجوى قعوار فرح، واليوم للأسف تكاد الأسماء النسائية تكون نادرة في هذا الأدب، خصوصاً في الشعر. ومن هذه الأسماء الشاعرة أمال عواد رضوان التي تكتب القصيدة النثرية فقط. لطالما شعرت أن هذا النوع الأدبي يمنحني القوة ويمنح شعبي ووطني الفائدة، وإن قامت سلطات الاحتلال بسجني واعتقالي مدة 3 سنوات بإقامة جبرية صارمة والحكم علي بالسجن 5 شهور إضافية فقط لكتابة قصيدة قاوم يا شعبي قاومهم، ورغم منعي من إصدار كتبي التي تحتوي قصائد من الأدب المقاوم، فإنني لم أتوقف عن كتابة الشعر المقاوم. على العكس تماماً، كان السجن بمثابة محرك لمشاعري للمقاومة أكثر والكتابة أكثر. ولا يتوقف الأمر في كتاباتي عند الوطن فقط، بل إن الشعر الذي أكتبه يتمثل في التمرد على كل أنواع الظلم، خصوصاً ذاك الذي يتعلق بالمرأة وتعاني منه المرأة الفلسطينية بالذات، كوني نشأت وترعرعت في هذا المجتمع، والمرأة الفلسطينية واقعة بين فكي ظلم الاحتلال وظلم الحكم الذكوري والأبوي. كثيرة هي الأشعار التي كتبتها ونشدت النساء من خلالها أن يتوهجن بالثورة ويتمردن على كل الظلم ضد الاحتلال وضد الأبوية والذكورية والعنف. فالأدب المقاوم في فلسطين برأيي لا يتوقف فقط عند الوطن، إنما هو تجسيد لكل حالة تمرد وثورة على كل ما يقيد حياة الإنسان الفلسطيني، وخصوصاً الاحتلال كونه المسبب لظلم حاصل في المجتمع الفلسطيني.
لحظة دارين معلش. Hi. So sorry everyone with the issues in sound. Thank you for bearing with us. دارين معلش تروحي على الchannel الكوري مشان نقدر نترجم. So apologies everyone. There was an issue when Dareen signed off and signed back in. So those of you that wanted the English translation, you might not have been able to hear it. Laura, Would you be able to read the introduction in English for those in the audience that don't understand Arabic? And then let Dareen know that we'll then proceed with the poetry portion. And thank you again, everyone, for bearing with us. Laura, are you able to hear us? Okay, great. Okay, great. You're in the English channel. Are you able to let Dareen know to switch to the Korean channel?
أنا سمعتك وأنا على الكوريان. أنا على الكوريان. I am in the Korean channel. I am in the Korean channel.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. شكرا. لورا راح تقري الانترودكشن في الإنجليزي مشان الناس يقدروا اللي بيفهموش عربي يقدروا يفهموا كمان. All right. Laura, if you wanted to go ahead, thank you. So sorry, everyone. Apologies again with the channels. If you want to hear Laura, you need to be in the English channel, not the main one. Apologies for the issues in translation. Okay, I think we might just need to continue. Again, apologies with the issues in the translation. I think, Laura, I think if you wanted to read the English, you might have to be in the main channel in order for it to be broadcasted out to everyone. Can you move yourself to the main channel? Thank you all again for your patience. Apologies. Sometimes the Zoom technology can get a little bit out of hand. No, we are unable to hear you. Let me, 1 second here. I'm going to end the interpretation channels and see if this helps. And then we will turn that back on afterwards. Yes, we can hear you.
Great, okay. أول شيء دارين نعتذر كان في مشكلة بالترجمة مش الكل قدر يسمعني فرح نرجع بس نعيد اللغة الإنجليزية كلهم سمعوكي بس بالعربي. To everyone, thank you again for your patience. I'm just going to reread Dareen's introduction in English. In life, human beings are created having an instinct of resistance. They resist anything that comes their way, and such is language. It was and remains a primary access and important element in the confrontation and rejection of anything that obstructs their way. Human beings have always used language as an important and influential element to defend themselves and their causes. Poets and writers are considered the first and most important individuals who have used language for resistance, especially in Palestine, where resistance literature is considered the most important genre of literature. Palestine is the homeland of resistance literature because of its permanent occupation over the decades and years. This spot of land has produced the most famous Arab authors who have written and excelled in resistance literature, like Ibrahim Tuqan and his sister Fadwa, Abdel Rahim Mahmoud, who is known for his poem The Martyr, and the poet Abdel Karim al-Karmi Abu Salma, who wrote the renowned poem The Flame of the Poem, that begins with, "Spread on the flame of the poem the complaint of slaves to slaves." And the poet Mutallaq Abdel Khaliq and the poet Rashid Husseinin, renowned for the poem The Revolutionaries Chant, where he says, "We will make stone understand if men do not, and if people revolt, they will be victorious. No matter how many fires you make, we will extinguish them. Have you not seen that because of its flame we are dark? If you defeated all of the revolutionaries, the old, the sticks and stones will rebel. And Mahmoud Dusuqi and Mahmoud Darwish and Mu'in Siso and Ghassan Kanafani and Samih Qasim and Tawfiq Zayyad, known for the famous poem Unadikum, I Call on You, and other writers and poets who came after them, where resistance literature continues today. Even if it has slightly reduced, it is still present in the books of Ibrahim Nasrallah. The most prominent of resistance literature books are those from the Palestinians of 48, who live under occupation. They began writing this genre after the 1948 war, according to what Ghassan Kanafani has written in his study of resistance literature. Ghassan Kanafani was the first to use the term resistance literature and brought it to light in 1966 in his book, Palestinian Resistance Literature Under Occupation. Despite that resistance literature was present in Palestine since Al-Barraq Revolution in 1928 in the songs and poems of the martyred revolutionary poet Nuh Ibrahim. Today, with the existence of the Zionist Israeli occupation, and since 1948, occupation authorities have fought resistance literature in all ways possible, starting with the confiscation of literary works that resist and reject the occupation, to arresting and jailing writers, authors, and poets, and the martyrdom of some of them during battles. I do not speak of this without reason. History gives evidence that the Palestinian writer or poet has suffered both consequence over the years under occupation and imperialism. There are those who were martyred, and there are those who were jailed. I am a live witness to political persecutions against the resistance poetry that I write and that I present through the crimes of the occupation against my Palestinian people. Since I was young, I was influenced by Fadwa Tuqan, and she was the first I had read and went deep into her poetry. Afterwards, I began exploring all resistance poets, and I felt that I belonged to this poetry and this genre of literature, and I began to write. This literary genre was and remains the one that I find myself in. When I write resistance poetry, I show through my words my own resistance to the occupation, and I feel as if I am giving a service to my people and transferring every detail of our lives with the occupation through poetry to others. I find myself with resistance poetry, and I speak through it about all aspects of the occupation that I have lived and continue to live, events that I have seen with my eyes and continue to see. And of course, I wasn't the first poet to have been detained and jailed in Palestine because of her writing of resistance poetry. A good number of poets have been arrested before me and were subjected to torture, but I was the first female poet to have been detained because of her writing of resistance poetry. Women's resistance poetry became prominent in Palestine with the works of Fadwa Tuqan and Najwa Qa'war Farah. Today, unfortunately, those women's names are rare in this literature, especially in poetry. And of these names is the poet Amal Awad Ridwan that writes prose poetry only. I always felt that this literary genre gives me power and allows my people and my country the benefit, despite being detained for 3 years with strict house arrest and being sentenced 5 more months in jail for writing Resist, My People, Resist. And despite being prevented from publishing my book that includes resistance poetry, I have not stopped writing resistance poetry. On the contrary, prison has steered my emotions towards resisting more and writing more. My poetry isn't limited to the homeland only. The poetry I write represents a rebellion against all forms of oppression, especially that on women and what Palestinian women suffer in particular. I grew up in this society. The Palestinian woman has fallen between the jaws of the oppression of the occupation and the oppression of the patriarchal system. Many of the poems that I wrote appealed to women as they are crowned with the revolution and rebel against all injustice, against the occupation, the patriarchy, the misogyny, the violence. Resistance literature in Palestine, in my opinion, isn't limited to the homeland. It is a manifestation to every form of rebellion and revolution on all that restricts the life of a Palestinian, especially the occupation, being the main cause to every injustice against the Palestinian people.
Thank you, Laura, for reading the English. I do want to reiterate, Dareen, we were able to hear you in Arabic. كنا قادرين نسمعك في العربي. مشان هيك غيرنا الموضوع. We would like to invite Dareen to come back to read her poems in Arabic, and Laura will be able to read the English afterwards. شكرا لكل شيء دارين. احنا اسفين عن المشاكل في الزوم. شكرا. تفضلي.
دارين شكرا كثير بدهم اياكي تقري قصائدك وانا بقرا بعدك. هن كلهم كانوا قادرين يسمعوكي بس مو قادرين يسمعوني انا، فتفضلي.
تمام. القصيدة ريزيست أعيدها ولا لا، ولا كانوا سمعوها ولا كيف؟
لا هاي تمام سمعوها.
سمعوا الترجمة تبعتك ولا كيف؟
Diala, do you want me to translate resist my people?
Yes, if you're able to, that would be great.
Okay. لا ما سمعوها، هلا خليني أراهم إياهم. Okay, so this is the poem that Dareen was arrested for. It's called Resist My People, Resist Them. In my Quds, I dressed my wounds, recounted my sorrows to God, and put my soul in my palm for an Arab Palestine. I will not agree to a peace solution as long as the poison is spreading and killing flowers from my country. I will never lower my flags until I take them out of my homeland. I will defeat them when the time comes. Resist them, my people, resist. Resist the settlers' greed, shred the shameful constitution which carried the depressing humiliation and prevented us from reclaiming our rights. Resist them, my people, resist. And follow the convoy of martyrs. They burned the innocent children, and at Hadil, they sniped in public, murdered her in broad daylight. They plugged Muhammad's eyes, crucified him, and drew pain on his body. They poured hatred on Ali, set fire, and burned hopes in a cradle. Resist the Musta'ribin's evilness, and do not listen to the collaborators who tied us to the illusion of peace. Do not fear the fire tongues of the Merkava tank, because of the belief in your heart is stronger, as long as you resist in a homeland which experienced invasions and did not get tired. For Ali is calling from his grave, resist my rebellious people, write me as part of the incense branch, and you became the response to my remains. Okay. تفضلي.
حريتي. هذه القصيدة كتبتها في السجن بعد ما أخذوا مني الإقلام ومنعوا علي إدخال الورق، فكنت حفرتها بسحاب الجاكيت تبعتي على جدار الزنزاني وكتبت لهم حريتي. حريتي. غلقوا علي الباب في زنزانة، شدوا الإسارة وأحكموا إقفالها، منعوا دخول النور، زادت ظلمة فرسمت مصباحا على جدرانها، مسحوا الجدار يا راعتي قد صادروا فتوهجت شمس العيون بليلها، أشعلت في روحي فتيل مشاعري فأضاء فانوس القصائد عتمها، عصبوا العيون كذا لساني كمموا فأنار شعري في الفؤاد ظلامها، انقيدت تلك السلاسل معصمي لن يسجنوا حس الحياة ونبضها، حريتي 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 لن يقتلوا في الشعور بحسها. اتفضلي.
Shukran Dareen. So this poem is called My Freedom. They had prevented her from writing on paper, so she carved it on the walls of her cell. It is translated by Paul Starkey. My freedom. They shut the door on me in a cell. They tightened the strap and closed the cell tight. They stopped the light coming in, a shadow grew and drew a light on the walls. They wiped the wall, confiscated my pen. The ice sun blazed in the night. They bandaged my eyes and muffled my tongue. My poetry lit the darkness in the heart. I lit the wick of my feelings in my soul. The lamp of the poems lit up its darkness. If those chains fetter my wrist, they will not imprison the sound and throb of life. My freedom, my freedom, my freedom, they will not kill the sense of its voice within me. تفضلي.
لن أهاجر. وقعوا عني وجعلوني ملفاً منسياً مثل أعقاب السجائر، مزقتني الغربة وبت في وطني مهاجر، تركت الأقلام تبكي فوق أحزان المحابر، تركوا حقي وحلمي عند أعتاب المقابر، وذاك المنتظر يرثي حظه والعمر عابر، حاصروني اقتلوني فجروني اغتالوني اسجنوني، عن البلاد لا تنازل، دمروا بيتي اهدموا عمري احرقوا شجري، سأبقى في وجوهكم مقاتل، ازرعوا أرضي موتا واجعلوا الأمطار فوقي قنابل، لن أهاجر، لا تهويد لا اعتراف ولا تجنيد، فأنا خلقت لأزاول، أنا على هذه الأرض نخيل شامخ لا أرضا حناء، لو مت عطشا وجوعا بوطني لن أتاجر، حضن أمي وبسمة الصبح واسلبوا مني المعاني وتقليب الدفاتر، احرموني كل شيء وامنعوا عني راحتي ونوم المحاجر. سوف أبقى سوف أحيا في بلادي، لن أسافر. سوف أبقى في شروق مثل شمس تبعث الدفء تقاوم، وعن ظلال أرضي لن أغادر. أنا إن قتلت قهرا سوف يولد بعدي طفلا يقاتل يحييني من جديد وأواصل. كلا وألف ألف كلا، لن أهاجر. تفضلي لارا.
This poem is called I Will Not Leave. They signed on my behalf and turned me into a file, forgotten like cigarette butts. Homesickness tore me apart, and in my own country, I ended up an immigrant. I abandoned those pens to weep over the sorrows of the inkwells. They abandoned my cause and my dream at the cemetery gates, and that person who's waiting laments his luck as life passes. Besiege me, kill me, blow me up, assassinate me, imprison me. When it comes to my country, there's no backing down. Destroy my house, end my life, burn my trees. In your face as a fighter, you will see me. Cultivate death in my land and make the falling rain bombs. I will not leave. No for Judaization, no for recognition, no for recruitment, for I was born to resist. I'm on this land standing like a palm tree, never bends, even if I died from thirstiness and starvation. I will not vend my homeland. Take from me my mother's hug, my morning smiles, meanings, flapping notebooks. Take anything from me, forbid me from rest, from sleep in carriers. I will steadfast, I will thrive. From my land, I will not leave. In the sunrise, like sun, I will shine, sending warmth and resisting. From over my land's shadows, I will not leave. Even if for no reason you killed me, a child will come after me to resist, to revive me again, and I will keep resisting. No, I say, and will keep saying for thousands of times, I will not leave.
آخر
تمام.
قصيدة في وقت ولا لا؟ أنا ما
في وقت، تفضلي.
أوكي. آخر قصيدة راح أقدم لكم إياها الليلة هي أطفال الحجارة، وبهديها لكل أطفال فلسطين، أطفال الحجارة في فلسطين. أطفال الحجارة في بلادي علمونا كل أطفال الحجارة أنهم كانوا كباراً، أنهم ظلوا الكبار. علمونا أن حب الأرض باق لا يمل رغم بؤس الحال فيها، رغم سود الذكريات يستفيق الصبح نوراً صوت ضحك من كمد. علمونا كل أطفال الحجارة فوق كل الفخر خير طقس في الحضارة. علمونا هؤلاء الإنس نبلاء العصر هذا أن قطع العيش حباً لم يقارن فيه شيء، حين يغفو في الفؤاد عشق حرف ليس يدري غير اسم للبلد. علمونا في ديار القدس نصر لا يساوم، فيه موت رغم أن العيش صعب، فيه نحيا صامدين في جلد. علمونا كل أطفال الحجارة أن عيش الذل موت، بل وأقصى منه ثقلاً إن رضينا فيه يوماً، إن جعلنا العهد فينا دون أصل واستللنا راية السلم سوف نبلى بالزرد. علمونا في بلادي علمونا كل أطفال الحجارة أن ما في الرأي قوة كالسلاح، إن أخذناه بحزم انتصرنا. علمونا أن في الأحجار قوة، أن في الكفين ثورة. فاعلموها يا جنود الذل، هيا وادركوا ما علمونا كل من عاش الصمود في المعارك، أن فينا 1000 طفل سوف يولد مدركا درب بطولة، حافظاً درس الحقيقة، أن للمحتل دحراً، أن للأحرار ورداً، أن للتاريخ عيناً لا ترى غير من قد علمونا أن نقاوم ونقاوم لا نساوم. تفضلي لارا.
كتير قوية. What a powerful poem. This one is called The Children of the Stone, and she dedicates this to the children of Palestine, the children of the stone. In my country, we have been taught by all the children of the stone that they have always been great and still are the great ones. We have been taught that the love of the land is permanent and of it one can never get enough. Despite the misery which exists there, despite the blackness of memories gleaming, the morning awakes, a sound of laughter from gloominess emerges. We have been taught by all the children of the stone, beyond all the pride, the finest ritual in this civilization. These humans, this era's nobles, have taught us that living life, loving and wholehearted, is unparalleled. When the adoration of a letter rests and slumbers in the heart, knowing nothing but the name of the country, we have been taught that in the lands of Jerusalem, there is victory that cannot be compromised. It is deadly. There, living is a hardship, yet steadfast we endure and survive. Strongly, the children of the stone all have taught us that living under humiliation is death. But what is heavier would be if we one day with it were satisfied, if we shook our deep-rooted promise and the peace flag we raised. We should be tested in chains. In my country, the children of the stone have all taught us that in speaking up, there is power. As a weapon, if we onto it firmly hold, we achieve victory. We have also been taught that there is strength in stone and that in both palms, there is a revolution. So learn with that, familiarize yourselves. You, soldiers of humiliation now, comprehend what they have taught us. Those who have experienced determination, that among us, there will be 1,000 kids, 1,000 children who would come to life, already aware of the path of heroism. They would have already memorized the lesson of the truth, for the occupation defeat lies ahead, and that the free will be with water quenched, and the history has eyes which solely see those who have taught us to resist and resist, not to bargain or compromise. Thank you so much. What an amazing poem. كتير كتير حلوة دارين.
شكرا كتير لكم. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dareen. Yatiki Al-Fati. Your words and your presence is so powerful. Thank you for being here. Now I'll introduce our final performers. Shoruq. Shoruq is a nonprofit NGO established in 2012 in Daheshe refugee camp, just south of Bethlehem in the West Bank. Their vision, mission, and programs are geared towards political, social, cultural, and economic prosperity for a dignified life of all refugees in Palestine and the diaspora. Shoruq specifically achieves this by utilizing multimedia and art as primary methods in order to construct a suitable environment that guarantees a dignified life for all Palestinian refugees. Dalia is one of the active youth in the organization and part of the advocacy team. Sadil is one of the Dabke dancers and participated in different activities in Shoruq, including murals in the camp. I'll hand it off to Dalia. Welcome, Dalia. Please take some time to introduce yourself and Shoruq.
So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dareen, for these amazing poems and everyone who has spoken before. The songs, everything was really great. And I love how this connects to the work of Shoruq. And I am going to be speaking today on some of the projects and programs that we run at Shoruq. And I will let you know why these are special. And then I'll jump into what I do at Shoruq, which is debate, and try to show you how it connects with what we have seen presented today. So Shoruq is, as you said, is a nonprofit that started in 2012 in the Daheshe refugee camp. So our main mission is to empower refugee students, not necessarily students, but like youth in general, especially the most vulnerable ones. We also focus on women and young girls. We try to empower them and give them the podiums they need to speak up for themselves. We offer multiple kinds of programs. So we have programs that advocate for human rights and refugee rights. We have legal programs to support children who are in conflict with the Palestinian law, and then we offer them mental and psychological help after. So this is like an overlook at our programs. Some of the very successful programs that we have at Shoruq is the dance troupe, which is the Palestinian Dabke dance. We have around 40 children in 2 generations. Coming to dance Dabke and learn it for 3 times a week, which is an excellent way to protect the Palestinian heritage and ensure that people in Palestine continue to dance the way our grandparents did. And and then they dress the Palestinian way, they record videos and send them to the world to introduce the world to the Palestinian dance and the Palestinian clothing and culture. We also have a very special project here at Shoruq, and I'm so happy many of the people who spoke before me talked about feminism and about Palestinian women. We have a rap and a hip hop girls group at Shoruq. They're actually around girls who are like 12 to 17. They expressed that they want to do rap and hip hop. So they got the chance to do that. They're self-run, so they actually teach the second generation of girls who were inspired and came to do rap. And it's really special to see teenager girls who are refugees from the camp dance making rap. And the good part, the very nice part, is that these girls are not monitored by anyone. They write the songs that express them. They write whatever they feel, then they help producing, and they help doing the singing and creating the videos and the clips for their rap and music. So this has been an excellent project, and it has absolutely helped shift culture around women in music and women in resistance, especially talk about what they face as Palestinian young girls living in a camp under occupation, in addition to patriarchy things. And we believe that it is hard to take up what women go through in Palestine from politics, because even if you are freed from patriarchy, you're still not free to cross that border, right? You're still not free to cross the checkpoint. There is another frame that will still surround you. So they talk about the issues that they face. We have a media project. We work with all sectors of society, women, refugees, children. We've also worked with people with disabilities through our media projects. So we work on teaching these people how to make films, how to write scripts, how to record audios and stuff like that. You know, we give them the tools they need so they can later be productive in society, and to use these media projects to talk about Palestine, to advocate for their causes, whatever they feel they need. We also help artists and filmmakers get to international and global festivals. We've recently had a film called Behind the Fence get to international and global film festivals. So this is amazing to get Palestinian filmmakers out there. We also have, I'm sorry if I'm going fast, I'm just like fast by nature. We also have a legal support system for kids who are in conflict with the law. We have seen an increase since 2014, so this is an old project, by 30%. So we have seen that people started to accept this project and are actually in need with it. So we are talking about kids who commit, you know, minor crimes. I don't want to call it crime. These kids are not necessarily, you know, criminals. I have my thoughts on these you know, labelings, but we help these kids get the counseling they need, get the lawyers they need to get them back on track, to get them back to school, to get them back on the correct behavior. So we support that with another kind of projects that we run at Shoruq, which is a psychological project. So we have experts get to speak with these students, I mean like kids, and help them if they have committed, you know, crime, and through the legal program. But we have a separate psychological support programs that work with women, you know, boys, young girls, to talk about gender-based violence. So they are sometimes gender-based violence survivors, and they come to safe space and a safe zone to talk about what they need, and we try to offer them the tools to live with it and condition, you know, resist it. That's the word, resist it. We've also given them the support, the psychological support during the lockdown that's happened due to the coronavirus pandemic, because we know so many women have been locked with their violators and abusers. So this psychological project has been a success, especially that we have a stigma around seeking mental and psychological help. And we've seen Shoruq break here, so we're very proud of it. I'm going to talk about what I do in Shoruq now, which is part of another program, which is the debate program. So we believe debate is an art. It's an art of speech, it's an art of rhetoric. It's about how to speak in front of the public. So it's an art. And yes, this art can be used to resist patriarchy, resist occupation, resist whatever you feel the urge to resist. So it's a very recent project at Shoruq. We started in January of this year, 2021. We have 15 students, most of them are females. And we talk about so many things that so many of you mentioned. I took notes, actually, it's so interesting. How we had like this land acknowledgement. We have talked about Native Americans. We have talked about Black Lives Matter. We have talked about the 13th Amendment that allows slavery in prisons and inmates. We have talked about Angela Davis. We have talked about Noel Saadawi. So it's a very interesting club because it offers the students the chance to think critically. And once they think critically, they're aware of the circumstances that burdens them and limits them, and they're able to resist them with complexity. And this is what I love about some of the poems and the songs we've heard. Because you've talked about women, and then so it's not just about liberating the land, it's about liberating the people. And this is also what we try to do at the debate club, to realize that Palestine is not an issue of just the land, but it's the issue of the people, the women inside it, the kids inside it, the disabled, the Black, the inmates, the people in prisons. So we work on all of these issues in the debate club. The debate club, it's its 4th month, but it has made huge successes. We've worked on a legal kind of like a project to discuss why women do not access the law and how can we help them do that. We've also participated in Qatar Championship for the first time, and our team has done great. So this is like a glimpse of what we do at Shoruq in general, and at the debate club in specific, and how words are the art of and the art of speech can be used in resistance, because it's absolutely a war of terminology, to be honest, because what we say is resistance, the world might call terrorism. So to know how to use words and rhetoric is an art of resistance. We also have, we respond. That's, I think, what is special about Shoruq is that we really engage with the community we're in, and we respond to its needs. So apart from having these successful projects, we also have events whenever there is an event that pops up. So we have the Nakba events every year. We have the Land Day event every year. We hold summer camps. So different activities based on what is happening. We've supplied, sanitary products when the coronavirus pandemic hit. So this is like a glimpse about Shoruq. I hope this was helpful. Now I'm gonna let the chance for my student Sadil to speak about the Dabke, the Rap Girls. If she wanna speak about the debate, it's up to her, and the floor is hers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sadil, and I'm 14. I have participated in a lot of activities in Shoruq organization. I'm happy that I know Shoruq organization, and I to participate in these activities. And actually, I'm a student of Dalia. She is my coach in the debating club. And also, I dance Dabka at the Dabka dancing group. I've been dancing for 4 years. And speaking of Dabka, I would like to tell you more about it and what it means for us. And yeah, so as we know, Dabka is a type of traditional dancing in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. But especially for Palestine, Dabka means so much for Palestinian people. It's not just dancing. It became it shows the Palestinian belongings to their lands, and it also became a way to send a message or an idea to people through Dabka songs and movements. For example, in my group,
Sadil, you are muted now.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
You're all right.
Yeah. For example, our group songs talk about the Palestinian case, the Palestinian traditions, things they used to do, women also. So yeah, it's a very nice way to send a message, and it's also a big part of resistance. Also, by dancing dabka, we are saving this beautiful thing of Palestine. It's very important to have people in Palestine dance dabka and teach dabka to children to save this thing. And also, dabka is like very fun. Palestinian people don't like to be sad; they like to be happy. Yeah, so yeah, it's very fun and so meaningful and powerful. Also, I would like to talk about the girls rapping team. So it's very nice, it's very cool for a girl to sing rap, because I think it's not very familiar in our community to see a girl rap. So it's very nice that Shoruq give this opportunity to girls. And I think that rap is another way to send an idea to people, to express things in the community. So we can talk about different cases in the society. We can talk about the bad things and hope that this way the rap can affect and change these things. And also we can talk about the good things and motivate them and like boost them in the community. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that art is also a way of resistance. We can resist through art. We represent Palestine through dabka, rap, maybe a photography. We can reach the Palestinian case and everything through art. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sadia. I'm going to pass it back to the MCs to introduce your video performance.
Yes, Lena, please go ahead and share the performance. Nice.
Lena, I don't
Sorry,
think
we can't hear the audio, Lena. I think you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Okay.
As Palestinian refugees, we live under occupation and we understand the meaning of racism, so we feel your pain.
Black Lives Matter.
From Palestine, we stand with you against racism and colonialism.
We will continue our struggle for equality. Justice for all.
No to racism all over the world.
يعطيكم ألف عافية for all the work that you do. It's really humbling to see and be reminded of the significance of cultural production and the role it plays in the formation of Palestinian identity and also how we relate to our struggle. And of course, the role of youth to carry our struggle forward. So with that being said, we will be obviously concluding the event now. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today and spending your Saturday afternoon with us and celebrating this project and all of our anthology contributors. We'd like to announce that we will be opening the call for submissions for the 6th annual scholarship on May 2nd. So keep your eyes out for that. And we encourage all Palestinian youth aged 18 to 25 to apply to this year's scholarship. And we also encourage you to share the open call for submissions with other Palestinian youth creatives that you may know. This upcoming year, top 3 submissions will be granted the scholarship prizes of $1,000 US for first place, 500 for the second place, and 250 for the third place. The top 20 pieces will be published in the next year's anthology, and the submission period will be open from May 2nd to July 1st. So we are looking for talented artists to design the cover art for the next anthology. Someone will provide the link for more information in the chat. So thank you so much for spending your time with us, and thank you to our amazing poets, our visual artists, filmmakers, and storytellers, and our guests here today with us. Thank you so much for joining us today.